So we're looking at performance standard 2, as I earlier introduced to you. Performance standard 2 talks about labor and working conditions. Performance standard 2 of the IFC, when it comes to environmental and social responsibility of investment projects. Okay, so in this webinar, we are going to be focusing on the objectives, the scope of the performance standard 2, and the requirements in brief. Okay, so the objectives for PS2 is to promote fairness, non-discrimination, and to ensure that there is equal opportunity for workers without discriminating against sex, against religion, against disabilities, or any special discriminations, and also to maintain and improve the worker management relationship, to ensure that there is cordiality between the workers and the management, because this is key for project sustainability. You know, a project can be jeopardized if this relationship is poorly managed or not managed at all. So this is why it is important that the objectives of the PS2 should be studied by investment project proponents and to be well understood with appropriate documentations put in place to ensure that the safe and healthy working conditions are promoted for projects, and that the health of the workers is being promoted, and to avoid also the use of forced labor during the life cycle of the project. So that's talking about the objectives. So we will look at the scope of the performance standard 2, the scope of application. It's directed at direct workers, contracted workers, and the supply chain workers. So the performance standard has requirements as regards the direct workers, contracted workers, and the supply chain. So you can refer to the document we're using for this webinar, which is the IFC performance standards document, and be able to get familiarized with the different scope of application for these three categories of workers. Okay, because the core business processes constitute those production and services processes essential for a specific business activity, without which the business activity cannot continue. So different workers, different scope, different they fit in differently in the sustainability agenda. So this is why it should be taken very seriously. And then moving forward to the requirements, you know, the investment project proponent has to understand the requirements and put in place all the documentation that is stated in the requirements by the IFC. So a consultant can be gotten to understand the performance standard 2 and to ensure that all of the requirements are put in place in an appropriate fashion. So we have working conditions and management of worker relationship documents has to be made available to capture human resources, policies, skills, to capture working conditions and terms of employment, to capture workers' organization, to capture the issues of non-discrimination, even when people have to leave the organization or they have to be retrenched, what are the procedures? And when workers have grievances, how are they being managed? That should be captured, you know, as required. And also as required is the protection of the workforce. So issues of child labor, forced labor have to be captured as required, and also the occupational health and safety of the workers have to be captured. The proponents have to provide a safe and healthy work environment for the staff, and it should take into account the risks that could emerge due to the working condition, or even environmental risks that could crop up. Maybe if the organization uses chemicals, you know, the chemical, biological, or even radiological hazards that workers can be exposed into. and specificates that has to do with women. Some chemicals are not women friendly. All of this have to be captured in the occupational health and safety documents and communicated to staff and adhered to as a requirement. Also, we have your workers' engagement by third parties have to be considered with respect to contracted workers. What the contractors' principles are. In fact, the investment project have to guide the contractors on the do's and the don'ts, on the requirements as regards to the staff they engage in as third-party contractors. So there has to be an appropriate ESMS that will allow them to operate in a manner that is consistent with the requirements of the performance standard. And also, lastly, is the supply chain. The client has to monitor the supply chain, on an ongoing basis to ensure that significant changes in the supply chain and new risks, new impacts, or child labor or forced labor are identified on time and the problem fixed or the issue solved, so that there can be sustainability of the project and it can be in line with the laid down requirements by the IFC. So I hope this performance standards 2 summary is helpful for you. We will see you again in the next webinar. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will always be here to give you updated information about environmental and social requirements for your project, or even before you commence your investment. Some of those things have to be looked into. So you can reach us at info@richflood.com, or you can reach me directly at comfort by my email, comfort@richflood.com.